Today on Overwatch This, we discuss the game's biggest ever update, the future of the 1v1 and 3v3 modes, and the continuation, sort of the Sombra ARG. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Overwatch This. It is Joel, as per usual, with Ben once more.
Hello.
And we've got a few things to talk about today, starting with the release of patch 1.5. So Ben, it is here. You've written a lot of the words about it. Everyone got very excited. Tell us about patch 1.5.
It's actually, I think it's probably maybe the biggest patch the game has had, actually. It's got a huge bunch of balance changes, really significant change to the way Ultimates are built, which I think is probably kind of the biggest change in terms of all characters, and then obviously Sombra's in there, plus the arcade with the 1v1 and 3v3 modes. It's just huge, to be honest. It's almost like an expansion, I would say. So
this is a lot of the stuff we touched on last week as being in the PTR is now live across all formats. So, yeah, I mean, we'll touch on the modes and Sombra later on. What are the other kind of character tweaks or other things aside from those two that are the main changes?
Well, there is a bunch of balance changes, nerfing heroes that have been used loads and loads in the main competitive scene, like Ana and Zarya. They both got brought down a little bit. I'm really interested to see how that and the ultimate change, which reduces all ultimate charge rates by 25%, how that actually affects.
It's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, the highest level of competitive play. We discussed this a little bit last week, I think it was. But yeah, like that is going to slow down the game to a significant degree. It's really going to change how team fights work. I think it'll make heroes that have fast charge rates, particularly Sombra. She has a pretty fast charge rate and she has easy ways to build it very quickly. It'll make them more useful because they'll get to use their ultimate like a significant more number of times. And yeah, I'm really interested to see how that goes. The next serious tournament's in a couple of weeks. That's DreamHack Winter, which there's 4 professional teams qualified for that, along with 4 teams that will just come from the bring your own tournament, your own computer tournament at DreamHack. And those teams that have qualified for that, they all came from big North American and European qualifiers that had all the best teams in them. So yeah, that should be really exciting. And at the same time, the Korean Apex League is still going on, which also has all the best teams because obviously the Koreans are best, as we sadly discovered at the World Cup last week. So yeah, I'm really excited.
We didn't even talk about the World. There was so much to talk about. In last week's show, we didn't even mention the World Cup.
We didn't mention how South Korea won the World Cup without dropping a map and without dropping an objective in the final match.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was pretty mad.
We were going beforehand. Well, maybe not. Maybe they're not going to do it. But yeah, that didn't go so well.
We got destroyed.
So yeah, and then obviously Sombra is now live to the people. Presumably will prove a pretty popular pick. We were saying last week about we were in sort of admiration of her various abilities and just looks generally pretty cool.
Yeah, she does look really good. And the community's kind of gone back and forth on how good she is. When they first saw her, they thought she was broken. That basically happens with every character added to any game at any point. People have kind of, then she flipped to useless, and now people are like, I don't know, she might be okay. But, people still need to learn how to play her. She was on the PTR for all of a week. Getting to play her depended entirely on how fast your SSD was, rather than, any kind of were you actually good at the character type deal. So people will learn to play her. She's not disabled or anything in the competitive mode, which people thought Blizzard might do, because the competitive season comes to an end in a couple of weeks. People thought, they would be like, okay, let's hold this.
The end, yeah.
But I think they're not that bothered about that. They might think about doing that in the future, but what it also does is it means there are people just jumping into competitive that have never played her. And, usually they're pretty good players. They have their 3 or 4 characters that they're really good at. They're in Diamond League or Master League or something like that. And then they're playing this character they don't know how to play. Nobody knows how to play. That is quite squishy, doesn't have a load of health. So that's kind of, messing up the competitive side a bit. But we won't really know, I think, until DreamHack, for example, or until we get a little further into this Apex League, exactly how good she is. And if she isn't particularly good, what happened with Ana is they buffed her fire rate by about 20% and gave her more shots per clip. And that just, shot her from
Sombra's
not
already got
to
quite
amazing.
a lot of shots per clip.
Yeah, that's not going up, I don't think.
So that would be a weird way of buffing her.
But I could imagine them changing, her health a little bit or something like that, and that just being enough to push her over the edge if she's not good right now.
Well, we've got someone on the ground at DreamHack Winter, so we'll see how all that plays out and try and feed back to you guys on the site and or the YouTube channel where you currently are. There's a very obscure thing. in the notes here, which I wouldn't have been entirely unaware of. You can get a Genji skin if you play enough games of Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, they're doing a Heroes of the Storm, I don't know, crossover promotion,
Please
I suppose.
play Heroes of the Storm. It sounds a bit like that.
They really want people to play Heroes of the Storm. They do this with quite a lot of their games. Like if you play enough WoW, you get a Hearthstone hero, and if you bought Overwatch, you got a Hearthstone card back.
But you have to play it's not just like buy something or get a thing. You have to play a lot of games.
You have to play 15 games of Heroes of the Storm, which I mean that isn't like a ton.
Of course it's not, but it's just weird if you don't play Heroes of the Storm, but you really want that Genji skin.
Then you're going to go play Heroes of the Storm.
You really are.
It's a pretty good promotion. Like if you play 30 games, you get like a load of Heroes of the Storm stuff for free as well. It's a really good deal, to be honest, considering like how much Heroes of the Storm heroes cost and that sort of thing. But it is kind of just them going, can you play the game?
Yeah.
So that's live at the moment. That was announced at BlizzCon as well, and that is now live going forward from today. That skin was part of the 1.5 patch. And
there's a few other sort of assorted bits and pieces, but quite frankly, the best thing to do is to read on the website because we've written a load about it.
So much.
And it's there. So have a look on the site. There's a huge breakdown of, as Ben says, is probably the biggest patch the game's received so far. And we'll see how things like Sombra and things play out over the next couple of tournaments. So another thing that was in the PTR last week and went live yesterday is the new reduced player number modes, for lack of a snappier term. So that's
I think that's what they're going to use.
Is that what they're going to use?
Says, yeah.
I mean, it's 1v1 and 3v3, right? And these are now out in the wild and proving pretty popular.
Yeah, there's already been a few threads on the forums and on Reddit about people really enjoying them and people wanting like a more competitive mode. And honestly, like I really enjoyed playing them. I haven't put 20 hours into them or anything, but yeah, they're really fun. They feel like something that they just kind of slot into the game. It doesn't feel like they've co-opted Overwatch. It's just like, oh yeah, no, this is something I would like to do with Overwatch. For those that maybe don't know exactly how it works, 3v3 is pretty much exactly the same as normal, except it plays out on a single map called Eco Point Antarctica. It doesn't have any health packs or anything, but other than that, it's kind of just a normal map where the first team to die loses. It's like an elimination mode.
Like a Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're dead, you're dead.
Or like Counter-Strike or whatever. Yeah. And then 1v1 is like a first to 5, a best of 7. And best of 9. Best of 9.
Yeah,
first to 5. Where you change character every time you lose. So you lose a round, like you play Genji versus Genji, and then you switch to Widowmaker, and you're both playing Widowmaker. And it's kind of like it's random, obviously, because you only play a maximum of like 9 characters, but it is kind of a who has the most skills over the whole Overwatch cast. And yeah, they're really good. I really enjoy them.
I really like it as a concept. It reminds me a bit of, I think it was the first Black Ops, where they introduced gun game, where you each time you win or you get a kill, you get the next gun. And you both are kind of on that cycle. It's a sort of similar kind of thing.
Yeah, that was in Counter-Strike as well, and it was, I really enjoyed it.
I really like that. So, yeah, it seems really good. The issue we're having in terms of trying to make an Overwatch show is that there's one map. So all of this footage is from one map because there's only one map. So they need more maps, right?
Yeah, so people want it to become like a competitive mode, and some amount of that is just, oh look, new thing, let's make a competitive mode out of it, like you get, whenever a game releases, people want to make it an esport. But I think there's definitely something there. The games are quicker, they're leaner, and they're more defined, was how I would put it. Where like if you make a mistake, you're like in a lot more trouble, and also there's like less options for you to go to, so your decision making matters a lot more. Obviously, in some ways that's worse, but if it sits alongside the main 6v6 mode, then I think that's very viable. But yeah, what it definitely needs to start with is more maps. Eco Point Antarctica is nice. It's good. It's
nice
fun to play on. Yeah, it looks really good. It's got all the lore stuff that most maps have, but if people are going to be playing this kind of competitively, maybe not on the same level as like the Overwatch League, but to some kind of professional degree, there's going to need to be at least 3 or 4 maps that people can be specialists on, and there to be different strategies on and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the only slight issue I have with the 3v3 is something that you touched on last week, which is that you'll probably end up, in terms of an esport, you'll probably end up with only a couple of combinations of 3 characters that work. So you may end up just seeing teams playing the same sort of 2 sets of 3 or whatever, or 3 sets of 3 against each other over and over again, which may get a bit tedious.
Yeah.
But I really like the idea of seeing the 1v1 mode played competitively, because I think because it's random, because you're both playing the same character at the same time, the skill level seems to come into that even more. So I think if they can make that work as an esport, it could actually be really good.
Yeah, it's like super quick as well. Like you could play it, between like major rounds of a big tournament. Say you've got a night of the Overwatch League and there's 2 big games on. Between that, you could have the next couple of rounds of the 1v1 tournament because it'll take 20 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then that's just something that you can put out there that lengthens your broadcast, that and makes the kind of whole sport feel a bit more real, I suppose. And with the 3v3 mode, they people have posted on the forums and they've said, hey, we really think this could turn into a proper thing, but we think it'll need these things. And one of the things that was brought up was like a pick ban system so that you could avoid that thing where the meta gets stale because everyone's playing the same stuff. Kaplan responded to that. Jeff Kaplan responded and said, we agree that we would like to turn it into a competitive thing. We haven't done it yet because we don't think it was ready yet. We think it needs more iteration. What he probably means there is basically more maps and that sort of thing. But they don't want to use a pick and ban system because they don't think it really works particularly well.
Right.
It's what most other games of this type use.
Yeah.
But I can imagine why they wouldn't want to do that. There's other options they can go for. They can make more maps where different characters are viable. They can also have a system, for example, where you couldn't have the same character on each team.
Yeah.
So
it
would be 6 different characters across the whole thing.
But I think even with that, you'd end up getting a situation where, like, as I say, if it's like these 3 work and these 3 work, then if one team has picked one of that three, then the other team would go the other 3. So I feel like that's possibly an imperfect solution. But it strikes me that if they want to make the Overwatch League as big as they obviously want to make the Overwatch League, they're going to need to integrate more types of Overwatch game into it rather than just your standard. So it feels like this is something that they've probably are slowly introducing with a view to incorporating it into that competitive ecosystem, just to add a bit of variety to it, really.
Yeah, for sure. Like, variety is good. And, like football, soccer for the Americans has X per side formats like 5-a-side, 7-a-side, etc.
Yeah.
Basketball has the dunk competition,
Yeah, and
they don't run it particularly
your home
often.
run competitions in baseball and stuff like that. And it feels like a bit of a novelty, but actually it's still really good to watch.
Yeah, like people really enjoy watching it. You don't have it on every single week, or if you do, it's like a minor part of that. It's a different skill that people who play the main game also focus on if they want to make like a little bit of a name for themselves or something. It's a way to have more players that people know really well. Like if you've got like a little 1v1 scene and a slightly bigger 3v3 scene, and also the humongous, if they get to where they want to be, the humongous Overwatch League that uses 6v6, you can have these players that, oh no, this guy's a really good 1v1 player. He's on this kind of reasonable middle tier team on 6v6, but if you want to see some 1v1, watch this guy, and then that guy has, more fame and can have more Twitch followers, and that's the kind of thing that esports needs to have a viable ecosystem where players can make money and be professionals.
Now, we're going to close the show today with what you've titled in our notes as the Sombra ARG continues, only to annoy me, because you know how much I hate ARGs and this interminable Sombra ARG. It isn't really that, thankfully, but there's some fan interpretation and speculation around a sort of freeze frame from the trailer where she's doing that Minority Report thing of playing with digital stuff. So
when you put your hand out, computers appear. That's
exactly.
How the world
that's what
works
Tom
now.
Cruise has taught us all. So so explain a bit more what this is.
Yeah, so in the I think it's the Origins trailer that it's from. They had this lovely animation where Sombra talks about her life, and she's like a very unreliable narrator, so we don't know how much of it's true and how much of it isn't. But towards the end, there's like a shot of her putting her hand out and this massive like conspiracy web appearing, and it's got her on it, and then it has this god that she's looking for, this like this person at the center of it all that's controlling the kind of whole Overwatch world at that point. It's the conspiracy that found her and made her go into hiding as part of her backstory, or at least that's what she said happened. And it's then got links to like all of the different characters and all the different organizations that are involved in the Overwatch world. And what people have done is obviously they freeze framed it and went, okay, so what does all this mean? And I when I saw it at BlizzCon, I was like, people are definitely going to do that, but I can't do it because I've just seen it for a second on a massive screen. But obviously people, that trailer's now on YouTube and that sort of thing, so people have managed to get it. They've basically gone, okay, so this is in the center, and here's Widowmaker, and then so this blank space next to her, that's probably her husband, and that sort of thing.
It does look a bit like a lot of people have gone, here's like 20 things this might mean.
Oh yeah.
It's super speculative.
It's endless speculation, and we've included it here, A, because it's super cool, and B, because it's kind of fun. But what it will mean is if this is something that they've put in there, like nothing Blizzard puts into any of their stuff is accidental. They didn't just go, oh, let's just put.
No, there will be meanings behind it. It's just at the moment people are not clutching at straws, but it's like they're throwing some darts out there, and some of them might hit the target. But you can see it and what it looks like, and like Ben says, it does look quite nice. They've obviously done a decent and informed job of speculating, and I suppose as time goes on, we will see. Well, we might see some of the truth of what these things actually do represent.
Yeah, the hope would be that what we can do is over the next year of Overwatch storytelling, as they do more stuff, maybe not quite like the Sombra ARG, but they tell more stories that don't entirely connect up, and there are hints in places, and we see more characters, and we learn more from stuff like the graphic novel, which we've still heard nothing about. We'll be able to look at this image and go, oh, that must be what's there, and that means this is this, and that's that, etc., etc. Hopefully it doesn't just mean nothing, like it isn't just totally throwaway, because somebody's put quite a lot of effort into trying to understand this. And like the way it's laid out, it does sort of make sense. You have to make assumptions as to, okay, so why is this image larger than this image, and what does this mean, and why are these two connected up, and that sort of thing. But what is there is you go, oh, okay, so right, this is Talon, and then Talon connects to Widowmaker and Reaper because they're working for Talon, and then you can work a bunch of stuff out. So hopefully as we go forward, the bits that don't make sense at the moment, or that are obviously hints, are actually explained, and it isn't just something that we go, oh, okay, it was just kind of something they put in with not a lot of thought behind.
It's going to end with her walking down an all-white corridor,
right?
Like in the second or third Matrix film, and then going into a room with that guy who looks like the KFC man, Colonel Sanders, who sat at a big bank of monitors.
So Joel's prediction on this one is Colonel Sanders
he's the overlord of Overwatch, and he lives in a big white corridor, possibly with Keanu Reeves.
I think that'd be fine. That'd be totally fine.
Yeah, so you can bank that one. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to give us a subscribe and come back next week when we will be talking about the inevitable winter update and all the possible Christmas content to come in Overwatch.